Farmers know their value. Gardeners with large parcels of land welcome their presence. And even backyard gardeners need an appreciation for those frequent visitors who can be found usually just after sundown on warm evenings, flitting about the skies in a zigzag pattern. Of course, we're talking about bats. Bats are good for your garden. According to the National Wildlife Federation, the majority of bats in the United States are insectivores. They hunt at night, they eat flying insects such as mosquitoes, beetles, and moths, many of which are considered pests. Bats provide an important ecological service by eating tons of insects. There's more than 40 species of bats that live in the United States, and they're found throughout the U.S., Puerto Rico, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. Bats can be found in almost every type of habitat. They live in the deserts, the woodlands, suburban communities, caves, and cities. Bats make their homes in a variety of different structures. They can use trees, caves, cracks in buildings, bridges, even the attic of a house. The largest urban colony of bats in the United States lives under Austin, Texas's Congress Avenue Bridge during the summer. The Congress Avenue Bridge becomes a temporary home to something like 1.5 million Brazilian free-tailed bats. And not all bats eat insects. Some live on a diet of nectar and fruit. Bats that feed on nectar also serve as pollinators to nighttime blooming plants. And to attract these flying mammals, some flowering plants have evolved a musty or rotten perfume smell. And that smell is created by sulfur-containing compounds, which are uncommon in most floral aromas, but they've been found in the flowers of many plant species that specialize in bat pollination. And you know, even their excrement is popular. Bat guano is an organic fertilizer. So give a listen to this conversation we had a while back with University of California farm advisor Rachel Long about the benefits of attracting bats to farms and rural homeowners. And you're going to hear some tips on how backyard gardeners can encourage this nighttime visitor to help control the bad bug population. In an 8-year study from 1997 to 2004, the University of California evaluated the use of 186 bat houses in rural areas of California's Central Valley. Well, did you know that well-placed bat houses can attract bats to Central Valley farms? That was the conclusion, the results of the study, headed up by Rachel Long, UC Cooperative Extension Farm Advisor in Yolo County. And Rachel, when it comes to bats, you are probably bat fan number one.
I know I've been called Batwoman many times before, and I'm actually thrilled with the title. Thank you for having me today.
It's amazing the insect population that can be controlled by bats and just the sheer numbers of insects that bats can control. Are they a benefit to a farmer?
Bats are definitely a benefit to a farmer. Bats consume their body weight in insects every night. So if you have a colony of, say, 500 bats on your farm, they'll eat the equivalent of a grocery bag full of insects every night. And many of these insects that they're feeding on are agricultural pests. So the bats feeding on a farm are definitely a huge benefit to a farmer.
Now, when it comes to bat houses, can you get bats to quit roosting inside a barn or a garage and get them out to a bat house?
So bats are really true to their roost, and they do like to go back to where they were born every year, and they're just amazing. You know, the whole migration where they use actually the stars and the landscapes because they have good eyesight. In addition to echolocating, they do use visual cues, and they also use the Earth's magnetic field. And so they do come back to the same place where they were born every year, just like salmon. And so it's really very, very difficult to actually get them to move into a bat house. But if you do have a colony of bats where you don't want them, you can exclude them from that area, and then oftentimes they will move over into the new roost. And when I'm talking about excluding, that if you have a colony of bats, it's, again, mothers and their young. And the mothers, they have their young usually about early June. And it takes a good 6 weeks for the young to fly. And so you don't want to do any exclusion during that time, because otherwise, if you walled the mothers out, then the babies would die. So the best thing is when I mention an exclusion, what I'm referring to is like a little one-way gate, like a doggy door or something like that, where you put a flap over the area where the bats are coming in and out, and then they can push their way out, but they can't come back, land, and pick something up and get back into that area. Because they have wings, they don't have hands, and so they can't lift things. So if you do an exclusion, it's really important to use something that bats can see light, so they know how to get out. So you want to use something like wedding veil material or something, and you just drape it over that opening where the bats are, where you don't want them, and then they'll push their way out. And then they can't get back in, and then oftentimes you can force them into using the bat house. But again, you don't want to do that exclusion when they have their pups, because the pups can't fly, and then, of course, the mothers are frantically trying to get back to their young.
So when is a safe season, then, to do a permanent exclusionary construction?
In the wintertime is the best time to permanently exclude them, because they're pretty much gone in the wintertime. Again, most of them are migratory, and they leave during the wintertime. But it's always good still to try the exclusion. And what I recommend is when people are doing an exclusion is to basically, again, just put a cloth over that hole and use duct tape, to tape on maybe two sides, the top and then one side, so the bats can push out but can't get back in. And you want to leave that there for about a week. And because bats actually, they can go into a dormant state, particularly if it's nice and cool. So I would recommend, week 10 days, just to make sure that all bats are not in there. And then once you know that they're all gone, then you can just seal up that particular area, whether it's with caulking or wood or something, to keep them out of that area.
If a farmer sees bats on their property and he doesn't have bat houses, where are they most likely coming from?
Bats can actually fly a long ways. They've been recorded to fly up to 30 miles away from their roost to forage for insects. And so they could be, if a farmer in our area sees bats on their farm, they could be coming from a local barn. They could be coming from a tree hole where you might have a roost, in a big tree hole in a tree. Or they could be coming from, like, under the causeway between Davis and Sacramento, where they're roosting in the expansion joint. So they're very strong flyers, and they're always going to where they think they can get a good meal. And so if you don't have a bat house, you can still benefit from bats that are moving into the area from around the region.
Are they attracted to water features?
Water is very important for bats, that bats do have to drink, and they drink on the wing just like swallows, so they swoop down and they scoop water into their mouth. And we find that if you do want to attract bats to a farm using a bathhouse, then having water nearby is actually clearly a benefit, because they do need water and they do need to drink several times a night.
What is considered nearby?
Nearby is within a quarter mile of water, so you want to make sure that you have some sort of water source within a quarter mile, and that's going to increase the likelihood that you will have bats on your farm.
And how big should that water feature be? Is there a minimum size that they're attracted to?
They need some open pool that's probably at least 10 feet long, because what happens is they're just like swallows. If you've watched swallows dip in for a drink of water in a pond, they just need some room to swoop down and drink water and come back up. So they don't have feet like a bird. They have little teeny legs that are used for clinging on to a surface upside down. So they can't land very easily and take off from the ground. So that's why you need to have a big enough kind of area where they can swoop down and like an airplane doing a touch and go. And they need a little bit of room for that. So I would say something that's at least 10 feet.
Are there plans online for constructing bat houses or these exclusionary tactics?
There are, yeah. And actually, I do have a publication out there online through UCANR, which is about bird, bat, and owl boxes. So there's information there which contains the plans for building bat houses. One of my favorite bat houses, though, that I've seen on a farm is the farmer just took a large piece of plywood and he put a 3/4 inch spacing all around the plywood, and then he just nailed it up to his barn. And he's got a lot of bats that are using that. I've seen other bat houses that are much more elaborate with multiple chambers, maybe 5 or 6 different chambers, and it definitely takes a lot of work to build something like that. So you can do something either simple or more complex, and you can actually buy bat houses online as well.
Now, one thing we didn't touch on, and we should, is the fact that since bats can carry rabies, these bat houses should probably be out of the traffic of people and pets.
That's right, and rabies is it's a fatal disease, so definitely one that you don't want to get. And bats carry rabies, and so you'll have maybe 1 in 1,000 bats that could have rabies. But rabies is completely preventable. Basically, you need to make sure to vaccinate your pets, so your cats and your dogs have to be vaccinated, and then you want to make sure never to handle a bat with bare hands, and because if they bite you, then you can get infected with rabies. And then also not placing the bat houses in an area where you have lots of kids, little kids or something that might pick up a bat, or if you have a cat or a dog in the area, because sometimes they do fall out of the roost. So you don't want to put it in a place where there is a lot of people traffic. That's something to definitely think about.
So it's very important then to have your pets vaccinated for rabies.
Yeah, rabies is definitely preventable, and the main way that rabies is getting into the human population is through unvaccinated animals. So dogs or cats that then come down with rabies, and they'll transfer it, to a person. So really the key is vaccinate your pets and never pick up a rabid bat, and it's just then rabies is preventable, and you don't have to worry about it.
And again, if people want more information about this conversation, the article that you have online, Well-Placed Bat Houses Can Attract Bats to Central Valley Farms, it's available. You can just Google the phrase well-placed bat houses, and I'm sure if you put Rachel Long's name on there, it would pop right up, and you can read more about that. And also you can read more about bats at the pest notes from the University of California Integrated Pest Management System website. Rachel Long, always a pleasure talking with you. Rachel Long, UC Cooperative Extension, Yolo County Farm Advisor. Thanks for spending a few minutes with us telling us more about bats.
Well, thank you. It's just my pleasure. I always appreciate talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is bats, because they are so beneficial and feed on tons of insect pests. So thank you very much for having me.